Well, let me thank Reverend Sharpton and Reverend Richardson and all of you for allowing me to be with you to share some ideas. Let me begin by thanking all of you for doing what too few Americans, in fact, are doing. You're not just sitting back, complaining, or worrying, or moaning and groaning. You're standing up and you're fighting back, and that's what we need in this country. I have a history of being blunt, so let's be blunt today. What blunt is being about is telling the truth in politics at a time when not a lot of truth is being told. So here are some of the truths that we need to be talking about. Number one, in this room, throughout this country, men and women have put their lives on the line to defend American democracy. Here is the truth. In many ways, the foundations of American democracy today are being undermined by disastrous campaign finance laws, Citizens United Supreme Court decision, and by voter suppression among Republican governors all over this country. So let us be clear. Truth number one is democracy means one person, one vote. You want to vote for me? Love to have it. You want to vote against me? That's called democracy. Billionaires who represent the wealthy and the powerful should not be about buying elections. And that's why we're going to overturn Citizens United. When billionaires buy elections, that's called oligarchy, not democracy. Number two, and I know the National Action Network has been fighting this tooth and nail, and that is we have a level of Republican voter suppression that is absolutely outrageous. You would have thought that after all we have gone through as a country to make sure that people have the right to vote, regardless of the color of their skin, that these Republican governors would show some mercy and not try to bring us back to Jim Crow days. The idea that they are passing laws restricting the right to vote, making it harder for people to vote, poor people, old people, people of color, that is moving in exactly the wrong way. Now I see my old friend Reverend Jackson here. He has an idea. Others have a different idea. But what we all agree on is at the end of the day, in America, if you are 18 years of age and you're an American citizen, you have the right to vote. Maybe we do it through a constitutional amendment. Maybe we do it in another way. But I'm tired of people figuring out ways to shrink the voter turnout. We've got to expand the voter turnout. Number two, I am embarrassed to have to admit this, but I am old enough to have been at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. I was there with Dr. King. Dates me, but I was there. But I want everybody to remember what I know you all know. The name of that march, it's not just the March on Washington, it was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, all right? Reverend Johnson?
I wasn't there, but
It's a kid. It's a good kid. He's growing. He's learning. Jobs and freedom. And what Dr. King understood is, of course, you have to destroy segregation. Of course, you have to open up opportunity for all people. But then he said, said, what does it matter if you desegregate a lunch counter, but you don't have the money to buy a damn hamburger? And this is what he said back in the 1960s. And it's sad to remember how much distance we still have to go. This is Dr. King. He said, the other America, he talked about two Americas, he said the other America was plagued by, quote, inadequate, substandard, and often dilapidated housing conditions. Well, guess what? I was in Baltimore, Maryland, a few months ago in a community where so many of the homes were boarded up. I've been in communities all over this country where gentrification is destroying neighborhoods. I have been in communities where people are paying 50, 60% of their limited incomes in housing. We've all been in communities where too many people are sleeping out on the street. Dr. King talks about substandard, inferior, quality-less schools. We all know what's going on in inner-city education all over this country. Go to Detroit, Michigan. Their schools are literally crumbling. People here from Detroit, am I right? But it's not just Detroit. Schools are dropout factories, and kids are going nowhere in a hurry. And then he talks about people having to choose between unemployment and low-wage jobs that don't even pay enough to put food on the table. Dr. King recognized, quote, it is criminal to have people working on a full-time basis and a full-time job getting part-time income. End of quote. Well, that was the 1960s. Sad to say, it is still true today in many respects. Is that correct? So what are we going to do about it? And then the third part, you've got a corrupt campaign finance system. We have a rigged economy, and we got a broken criminal justice system. All right, the rigged economy. Right now, you got millions of people trying to make it on $9 or $10 an hour. You can't make it on $9 or $10 an hour. Not if you're black, not if you're Latino, not if you're white, not if you're anybody. All right? Just doesn't add up. Arithmetic doesn't add up. Now, in the very beginning of this campaign, wasn't so popular then, a little bit more popular now. I said, when people work 40 hours a week, they should not be living in poverty. We're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Not everybody agreed with me. My opponent did not think that was right, still doesn't. But I think it is right. We're going to have pay equity for women so that nationally women don't make 79 cents on the dollar, and minority women, that gap is a lot wider. We're going to have a trade policy which doesn't allow corporations to shut down in America, move to China and other low-wage countries, throw millions of American workers out on the street. We're going to demand corporate America reinvest in this country. You know, I didn't know this. I didn't know this for a few months ago. Some of you know that in the 1960s, cities like Detroit, Michigan, and Flint, Michigan, were some of the wealthiest cities in America. Do you all know that? I didn't know that. What happened is the automobile industry shut down, and a lot of those plants moved abroad. We have got to rebuild manufacturing in America, create decent paying jobs here, and I intend to do that by changing our trade policies. I was in Flint, Michigan a couple of months ago, and my friends, what I saw there was literally almost unspeakable and hard to describe. I was supposed to give a speech after I talked to some citizens of Flint, talked to some parents who had witnessed the impact of the poisoning of their children. It was very hard for me to give that speech. To believe that in the year 2016, parents were watching the cognitive ability of their children decline. Kids who had been bright, gregarious kids, good students, were now in special education because of what lead in the water had done to those children. This is America 2016. We should not be poisoning our children. But it is not just Flint, Michigan. It is inner cities all over this country. So I've got a simple question. How does it happen we have trillions of dollars available to spend on a war in Iraq we never should have gotten into? But then we're told we don't have the funds available to rebuild inner cities in America. I disagree. There is no reason why youth unemployment in this country is at a disgracefully high level. I got a lot of problems with media because very often in campaigns, media are interested in political gossip, but not the reality of American political life. Want to know how much money you raised, how you're doing in the polls? That's fine, that's okay. But it is more important to know what's happening to the people of America. And I'll tell you what's happening to the young people of America. I had some economists do a study for me a number of months ago. This is what they found. For kids 17 through 20 who are high school graduates, not dropouts, kids were white, real unemployment, 33%. Latino, 36%. African American kids, 51%. This is a national outrage. Anyone here think that those outrageously high numbers of youth unemployment are not related to another outrage, that we have more people in jail than any other country, would be sorely mistaken. So here is a not so radical idea. We are going to invest in education and jobs for our kids, not jails and incarceration. Costs less money to send kids to college than it is to lock them up. I'd rather send them to college. Now, when we talk about a broken criminal justice, let's get to it. Let's talk about what we're talking about. First of all, our job is to make sure kids do not end up in jail, and that means education and jobs. That's what it means. We can do it. Second of all, it means taking a very hard look at local police departments all over this country. Now, the truth is, as you all know, local police departments are run by local municipalities. But federal government can play a major role in a number of areas. Federal government has the carrot, the reward, it has the stick, the punishment. Lack of financial support. What do we need? Number one, all of us in this room, we are tired, more than tired, of seeing the videos of Sandra Bland and Eric Garner and all the rest who are unarmed, and Michael Brown, you name it, the long list, the list too long, who are killed by police officers when they're unarmed. All right, we're tired of seeing that. And what that means is that, like any other public official, a police officer must be held accountable if they break the law. Now, I've worked with police departments all over my state of Vermont, all over this country. Most police officers are honest and hardworking. But if a police officer breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. Number two, what we have got to do is to demilitarize local police departments. Yes. Police departments should not look like occupying armies. This is not Iraq when I invaded the community. Number three, it is not too much to ask that local police departments reflect the diversity of the communities they serve. Number four, I am very proud to be the first candidate in this campaign and have introduced legislation to do this, to say that corporations should not be running and owning prisons and detention centers. Corporations should not be making more money when we send more people to jail. We got to figure out how we keep people out of jail, not send more people to jail. Number five, what we have to do is train police departments all over this country to understand that lethal force, killing people, is the last response, not the first response. Six, not everybody here will agree with me, but this is what I think. I think we've got to rethink the so-called war on drugs. What does that mean? It means that over the last 30 years, millions of Americans have received police records because of possession of marijuana. This becomes a racial issue because it just turns out that according to studies, blacks and whites do marijuana at about equal rates. Blacks are 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana than whites. All right? Many, many lives have been destroyed. You're a kid. You're 19 years of age. You're arrested, marijuana. You go out to try to get a job. Well, young man, have you ever had a police record? Well, yes, sir, I have. Oh, well, thank you. There's somebody else waiting for that job. Kids can't get jobs. The kids don't get income. Bad things happen. Right now, marijuana is listed Schedule 1 drug under the Federal Controlled Substance Act. I will take marijuana out of that Federal Controlled Substance Act. Furthermore, when we talk about drugs, everybody here knows that in this country today we have a serious epidemic, heroin, and opiates. We need to understand that to effectively treat substance abuse and addiction, you know what? We got to understand these are health issues, not criminal issues. That means we got to revolutionize mental health treatment in America. That means we make mental health treatment available to people when they need it, not 6 months from now. All right, when we talk about the economy, Reverend Sharpton was right. When we're talking about economic problems, they exist all over, but disproportionately in the African American community and the Latino community. Real unemployment is not 5%. It's double that when you include people giving up looking for work, people working part-time. And the African American community is a lot higher than that. Bottom line is, let me be the first to tell you, we need a massive federal jobs program to put our people back to work. Well, how are we going to do that? What's the best way to do that? The best way to do that is to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. All right, what that means is we end the Flint, Michigan-style water system. We rebuild water systems, wastewater plants, roads, bridges, schools, affordable housing, levees and dams and airports and rail and mass transit in New York, Philadelphia, and elsewhere. And when you rebuild your infrastructure, you make America stronger, safer. You create, with $1 trillion investment, 13 million decent-paying jobs. Think about what that does to America's economy and the needs of poor people. When we talk about the needs of our people, let us be very clear. Today, the world is different than it was 50 years ago. 50 years ago, somebody has a high school degree, you know what? You go out and get a pretty good job, right? Get a job in a factory, got a union behind you, you're doing okay. Today, in many ways, a college degree is the equivalent of what a high school degree was 50 years ago. So what all of that means is not only do we have to rebuild our public school system, not only do we have to make sure that we have the great young people going into education, going into childcare, but we also have to understand that in the year 2016, public education cannot just mean first grade through 12th grade. We need to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Now, you know why that's important? That's important not just because it saves young people who may not have much money a lot of money, they don't come out of school in debt. This is what it else does. I grew up in a family that never had a lot of money. My parents never went to college. I want every child in America. I want kids in the 4th grade here in New York City to understand that even if their parents never went to college, even if their family has no money, if those kids study hard, take school seriously, regardless of the income of those kids, they will be able to get a college education. That's revolutionary. While we are on economic issues, let me say something to you that I have been criticized and I'm proud of the success we had in passing the Affordable Care Act. It's a big step forward. We did away with this obscenity called pre-existing conditions. We added 17 million more Americans to the ranks of the insured, and we did away with discrimination against women in many respects. But here's where we are today despite the ACA. 29 million Americans, no health insurance. Many of you have health insurance, but you are underinsured with large deductibles and copays. Is that right? Right. And then every person in this world and in America is getting ripped off by the greed of the drug companies who are charging us the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. That is why I believe we've got to do what every other country on earth does and pass a Medicare for all single-payer system. Here is what this campaign is about and the decision that the people of New York are going to have to make on Tuesday. If you believe that given the crises we face as a nation, a declining middle class, 47 million people living in poverty, a broken criminal justice system, a campaign finance system that is corrupt, climate change, which is threatening not only our country but the whole world, millions of kids leaving school deeply in debt, a dysfunctional child care system, public education, which is not doing what it should be doing. If you believe that those issues can be addressed by establishment politics and establishment economics, you've got a very good candidate to vote for, but it's not Bernie Sanders. That's the truth. If you think, and I don't mean to be disrespectful here, that you can run for office, have a super PAC, and raise tens of millions of dollars from wealthy special interests, and then go out and take on the big money interests and protect working family, well, if you think that, you got a very good candidate out there, but it is not Bernie Sanders. But if you believe that now is the time for real change, if you believe that now is the time that millions of people, black and white and Latino and Asian American and Native American, that our people come together and we tell the Donald Trumps of the world, sorry, you're not going to divide us up. We're coming together. And if you want a candidate who has stood up to every special interest throughout his political career. Back in 1988, I was the mayor of the largest city in the state of Vermont, an almost all-white state then. I supported Jesse Jackson running for president. That wasn't a popular thing to do. I had to take on the whole Democratic establishment in the state of Vermont. I stood up. I'll never forget this, in a meeting in Burlington, Vermont. People turned their backs on me. That's how much they disliked what I was doing. All right? Jesse Jackson, Jesse, you win the state of Vermont? He won the state of Vermont. Wasn't a popular thing to do. Welfare rights bill. What was it, 96? Oh, that was an easy bill to be for, because it scapegoated the poorest people in America. All of the welfare recipients, all the welfare queens, remember that? Very easy bill to vote for. I didn't vote for that. I voted against that bill, spoke out against that bill. So what this campaign is about is whether we go with the status quo. And by the way, I've known Hillary Clinton for 25 years, and I mean this very seriously. You all know that. She's an extremely intelligent woman with a wonderful resume, a whole lot of experience. I've known her, and we've been friends for 25 years. You know, in a campaign, things get heated up. But I have a lot of respect for her. But that is what this campaign is about. It is whether we bring people together to tell the people on top that they cannot have it all. That we're not going to live in a nation where the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as around 90%. I don't think that's what America should be about. Not a nation where 58% of all new income goes to the top 1%. That's not what America's supposed to be about. So here's where it is. You elect me president, you're going to have a president who is prepared to take on the billionaire class, not take their money. So that is what this campaign is about now. As some of you may know, we have won 8 out of the 9 last caucuses and primaries. We started this campaign 60 points behind Hillary Clinton in the national polls. Last couple of polls over the last few weeks had us ahead in several polls. We are beating Donald Trump by 20 points in national polls. And I believe, along with many other people, that if you want to beat Donald Trump, you're looking at the strongest Democratic candidate to do that. For those of you in New York, I need your help on Tuesday. Let us have this great state join so many others and say we are going to go forward with a political revolution. We're going to have a government representing all of us, not just the 1%. Thank you very much.